Morning, Peter. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rashid. I've got the sunlight from the window makes me look like I've got a special glow effect about me. It disappears after about 9:30.
Fair enough.
And Barbara, I met you when I first met Rashid, which would have been, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, awful long time ago. But nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. And coming to the glow, you can't glow every day, all day. That's just too hard. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Actually, I might pull the blind. Just hold on.
Morning.
Morning. How are you going?
Okay.
Better.
See if I can line this up properly, eh?
We have over 30 people registered, so we'll just give it a little bit of time, see how many.
I'm interested, Rashid, to see what the turn-up rate is, because I mentioned to you yesterday that I'm doing an event myself next week, and interested to see from the acceptances. Normally I think it's about anywhere from about 50 to 70% of people actually turn up. So I'm interested to get a gauge on that for myself.
Well, the way I put it is the serious people turn up. Hi, Sean.
Hi, everyone.
Peter, I think that these numbers are sort of generic numbers, and they're not wrong. But if it's free, people have the freedom to turn up or not. So we had another event yesterday with Engineers Australia. And how many were registered? About 600.
I think they had, say, 551 or something.
Yeah, so thereabouts, and 160 turned up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but it was a good event. But just from the point of view, Peter, if you're running an event like this, or any of you, out of those 150, I basically promoted a free ebook, and I got 55 people signing up for that.
That's great.
They're on the list now.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think 34, 35 of them connected with me on LinkedIn.
Very good.
So it's just, look, this is a matter of building a list.
Yep.
Talking to people.
Yeah, and the reality is that I think we all do the same thing, that we might go and say, yes, we attend, and then something happens at the last moment that changes your plans. And I guess that's the advantage of being virtual, is that it's not like you've jumped into a car or on public transport and spent an hour, getting there. So it's easy to kind of opt out.
Hang on, somebody is just having trouble finding the link with the event. Let me just sort that out for a second.
Yeah, and also, you see, I think there are different reasons why we host these events, and one is just to raise awareness out there, and once is not going to be enough, and we don't buy the first time around when we see something new, and so on and so forth. So it's also, you can show consistency, you can show, which develops trust and all the rest of it. So you can do all manner of things. Just do not expect to have the same amount of people every time. This is not a reflection on you, and I think that's the most important thing, that we don't take this as a reflection on us. It's a reflection of where people are at, and we can't influence that.
Yep.
That's all it is. But we all need to get more agile in our delivery, how we do things, how we interact. It's a good training ground as much as anything else. So we pretty much have the philosophy, we'll do it. If someone turns up, we'll do it. If it's one person, that's fine. We'll do it. And I would suggest adopt that mindset rather than nobody's coming. Well, it's not going to change anything, is it?
That's right.
Well, look, I think with these sorts of things, I heard a long time ago that Anthony Robbins had about 3 or 4 people for his first firewalk.
Mm-hmm.
So, we all have to start somewhere. and it's just a matter of, you just keep pushing and building up people as you go.
Good morning,
Greg.
everyone. How you going? Actually, I had a lot of trouble joining this event. The Eventbrite wasn't letting me go in there. I had to sift through my emails and find the Zoom link that Rashid sent me. So I actually, I was a bit confused. So maybe that's why you haven't got as many attendees. Perhaps I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just noticed that because Grant just sent me an SMS that I saw, and I just replied with the link. I don't know what Zoom, I don't know what Eventbrite is doing. First of all, it had the date wrong, or it had the time wrong, which I then corrected. And now it seems to be saying it's 10 o'clock, even though I very clearly said 8:30 to 10.
Yeah, because the button doesn't work.
It lets you in half an hour before.
Yeah, so I was trying to click the button and it wasn't working. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. You're here.
Well, thanks for your tenacity.
Yeah, no worries.
You wanted to be here.
That's right.
See, the right people are turning up exactly at the point we were making before.
Yeah, I had the same issues, Greg. I keep getting that 10 o'clock meeting message, and it was real, just like a big circle going around and around trying to get in.
Yeah. I was going to send out
Apologies.
a reminder this morning as well, but I thought, how many do I want to send? But that's a lesson again, to send out one just before. Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay. All right. So I think we've got a few more people joining us. Morning, John. Morning, Alex. All right. I think we'll get started, if that's okay. So, good morning, everybody. If you're not speaking, could you just put yourselves on mute? Avoids any background noise. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this roundtable of business owners. The intent of today is to have a forum where we can all discuss issues around basically growing businesses. And I thought I'd just start with a model that we use to look at where businesses are in their particular growth journey, and then we can look at where each of us happens to be, and then we can frame questions around that, if that's okay. So tell me if you can see that, because I've turned my camera off.
Yes, we can.
Yep. Okay, good.
Good.
Okay. All right. So you're all familiar with a standard S-curve for business growth. And so if we look at a curve of the various phases of growth, and we sort of start the growth here, and in this phase, we're working primarily for the business, and it's probably somewhat unstable. So I'll say unstable, which means working for the business means that you're doing everything, you're running around, you're it, everything basically depends on you. And the stability and the instability means that it's very often a feast and famine. You get a couple of customers, you get consumed with those customers, you don't do any sales, marketing, prospecting, you're just consumer delivery, and therefore it goes up and down. Yeah, cash goes up and down, and you find yourself chasing your tail. As you start moving forward, you start thinking of getting some people on board, and you start working in the business. And in the business means you get some level of stability of cash flow. You've got some people that you can delegate to, but you're still really working for yourself. Everything still depends on you. You're the critical part. If something goes wrong, everybody comes to you. And it's very difficult to actually get any sort of leverage. And then from that point, we'd always say you need to start working on the business. And on the business means that you have the ability to start expanding and creating an asset. And there are a couple of ways we talk about creating an asset. The standard change of view. Okay. If you want to put me in speaker view, then you'll see me in a big screen. Otherwise, you'll see me in small square. Okay. At the asset and the expansion phase, you're really looking at creating an asset for yourself, where there are two ways of doing this. The standard way of it, most business owners think that, okay, we're going to create a business, we're going to run this business for a number of years, and we're going to then sell the business and hopefully make a lot of money. Now, statistically, the interesting thing is that less than 4% of businesses actually get sold for any sort of decent money. And even if they do get sold, they're very often golden handcuffs that says that the owner has to keep working in the business for a certain period of time. And if that business then starts to drop because the new owners can't keep the business because clients drop away, your payout also drops over that period of time. We see this a lot in the financial planning industry, for instance. And then the next phase of the business is actually working beyond. And this is where you get into the investment phase. And the investment phase and working beyond is basically where you can start creating a legacy. It means that you don't have to be involved in the business day to day. It means that if you wanted to sell the business would be in a position to be sold without any golden handcuffs. If you wanted to basically, and we've seen this happen, have people sit in the corner working in their little workshop or tinkering or producing other things, you can do that knowing that the business is going to run without you. So you've actually gone beyond the business. And obviously, as you go along the stages, at each one of these stages, there are risks because the curve can go up, but the curve can also go down. And so the thing is to be really aware of what the risks are at each one of those stages as you grow, because what got you here will not get you to there. And this is something that we really, really stress with the people that we work with. So given that, where do you all feel that you are in your particular journey? And let's look at the common denominator that moves people from each level to each other level. The common denominator that we always talk about is two things. One is sales, and the next thing is actual leadership. Because without a solid sales base, you're never going to get any further up the line, because you're always going to be chasing your tail. You're always going to be looking for new customers. So it becomes a case of how do you put in sales systems to start moving from here to here to here, because you're not going to be doing this constantly yourself. Does that make sense? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right. So that's the basic frame for today. So what I would suggest is a couple of things. One is we're all business owners here. Use this as a networking opportunity. So in the chat, if you feel so predisposed, then I would certainly encourage you to do so. I would suggest you put in who you are, what you do, who a great referrer would be for you, and your contact details. And then at the end of today, I'll share the chat with all of you, or you can just hit the three buttons down the bottom of the chat and save the chat for yourself. So I'll start and I'll give you an idea of what I would put in if I was when I put these things in. Let's see, where's the chat going? Where is the chat? There is the chat. Okay. So just put something like that into the chat, and then we'll save it at the end, and then we'll share the details with everybody. And it's a good networking opportunity, because you don't know who somebody here would know that could help you. Is that fair? All right. So let's look at who would like to contribute with some questions, some stuff that happens to be going on for them. And I'll just make a list of 3 or 4 people that we can start with so that we can just move from one to the next. And the reason I do that is because what I don't want to do is to have the first person ask the first question and then the second person just carries on with that particular question. It's better to actually have discrete questions that we can then focus on each person without each subsequent person just asking the same thing in a different way. Somebody else can't log in. Hang on. Let me just do this. Well, Barbara, can you just handle people asking the order of the questions, please?
Yes, sure, no problem. Okay, so hang on. Just put your hand up if you have a question so I can write down your note down your names, please. Grant is number 1. Okay, who else? Can I choose someone? Alexi, are you gonna ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I take you as number 2?
You can take, yeah.
Okay, great. And who is lucky 3?
Question,
Okay,
concern?
Greg was, okay, Peter. Okay, good. Thank you. Grant, you'll be coming on as well at some stage. Prepare yourself. You were so committed to be part of this, so I will choose you. All right, here you go. Grant, Alexi, and Peter.
All right, Grant, what's happening with you?
Okay, I think the biggest problem I have at the moment is getting good quality lead generation. It's probably my biggest issue at the moment. Just good, consistent, strong leads of of good quality, right?
Okay. So what are you doing? Okay, so just give us a little bit of background as to what you do and who for.
Okay, so our company does online marketing, web design and development, mobile apps, and the space highly competitive, full of spam artists out there who smash people's inboxes and ring them every day. So just trying to get head and shoulders above some of that noise and mess to actually find good prospects. We're lucky in that half our business is really recurring, and we get a chunk of referral business. But it's really that top-up business on top of that that we need in terms of external leads and, if you like, cold leads. Yeah. Coming in.
Okay. So what have you tried and what has worked and what hasn't worked?
Tried, various things over the years. Going way back, we used to do door knocks in the early stages of the internet. We've been around about 20 years now. Done a little bit on LinkedIn, but that's sort of been a bit patchy. Tried some lead generation services over the years. We never had really much luck with those guys. They just don't seem to be able to bring through the right kind of leads. You get a lot of tire kickers coming through. And also network meetings, business breakfast, those kind of things as well. But a lot of the actual activity is sort of patchy. One of the problems in our business is that the timing of when someone wants to buy tends to run more from that person's external circumstances than what we're doing. Yeah? So you have to be in the right time, the right space, the right time. Really. So those are some of the challenges. Yeah. Oh, we do newsletter marketing as well. We've got a newsletter and marketing database of about 6,000 plus, and we talk to them regularly every couple of weeks, and that's a bit hit and miss as well. Yeah.
Okay, so let's open it up. I've got some thoughts, but let's open it up to the floor because I'm not the font of all wisdom here. Who's got some suggestions?
I have, because I'm in sort of same space. It's how is about to go partnership with a bigger platform, like let's say CRM platforms or so other sort of systems or Salesforce, something like that. Brent.
So when you say use a bigger like Salesforce, how you?
Yeah, like that, because they generate leads. And if you become a partner of, it doesn't matter which platform, but what I'm saying, they generate leads and you can close deals through them and doing exactly the same what you do.
Okay, so okay, can you explain a bit more about how you use Salesforce yourself? What are you actually using this?
No, not Salesforce, like HubSpot, Salesforce, any platform, whatever you like. Whatever you use, like WordPress or something. WordPress doesn't generate leads, but some other bigger platforms, they have a team as they distribute leads because it's like a partnership with them. So it may help. Once I talk, I'll explain, because I'm doing exactly same problems like yourself. That's what I started doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So the question, I guess another way of putting this is who has the client before you, okay? So if we look at a non-competing business who has a similar client, where and you would be a good referral source for them, and they would be a good referral source for you, then you can say, okay, how can you promote me to your list, and how can I promote you to my list, where it is actually a win for the list. So is there something that, for instance, okay, so who would be a good partner for you, Grant? As in, who has the client before you?
We did do some cross promotion with a business coaching service, one of the large ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't pick up a lot from that. Maybe one or two potentials. That was about it really. So I think, and they were a good sized coaching business. Like we used to go along to seminars of 100 people and this kind of thing. But yeah, I think for those guys, they were more focused on trying to actually get people to invest in the coaching first, and we were just a downstream consideration. So we didn't want sort of really large feature of what they were trying to do. Yeah.
Okay. So another example would be one of our clients does loyalty programs for large retail, those sorts of people. And I know you do a lot of work with e-commerce.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So somebody like that who is very au fait with technology might say, okay, I've got a list of people that could need new websites. They could need better performance in their e-commerce, etc. So somebody like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I'm currently having a chat to the guys at Tipple who do the same day delivery for alcohol and other products along a similar line, because some of their clients coming in actually need to get websites as well as just doing the same day delivery. So that's an example as well.
Yeah. So then another one is I've got somebody else in a networking group who does POS terminals. So he reduces the price for retailers using POS. He could be somebody that could use, his clients could use your services, and you could probably refer people to him.
Yeah, that could be a good fit, because we can obviously build APIs between POS systems into our software. We have our own proprietary CMS, but we also build in WordPress and also on Shopify.
Yeah. So it's just, I think with all of these things, it's about expanding your thinking and saying, okay, so who else would have the person before me? As I mentioned yesterday, we did this gig with Engineers Australia, and 500 and something registered, maybe 160, 170 odd turned up. I'm not sure. I'll find out today exactly how many turned up. But out of that, I actually got 55 new people onto our list, 34 something LinkedIn connections. Not all of those people are ever going to turn into business. I'm not suggesting that they are, but a lot of those people are quite senior, and they are they're heads of consulting firms, which is my target market. So I wasn't, even though the talk was ostensibly targeted at junior engineers who needed to learn how to sell and get into their heads that they needed to sell, to move up the career ladder, it actually attracted a whole bunch of people. So all I'm suggesting is do some talks, do some things like this, where you get in front of people, because you don't know all of the people in this room here, you don't know who they know.
Sure.
So I would really encourage everybody here. Once again, I've seen a couple of people put their details into the chat, but put your details into the chat, make the connection. You don't know where something will take you. Anybody else got some suggestions for Grant?
Maybe with you mentioned, Grant, that you did a little bit of LinkedIn in a patchy kind of way. I've found that very effective outreach tool if you are going to go kind of down the cold lead or less warm lead path. But you need to really commit to doing a lot of messages. It's the sort of thing where it can be very off-putting. Just like, let's say you put out 50 messages and nothing happens, but but usually 100 to 200 messages results in one sale or one very good contact. That's actually how I reached out to Rashid, and that's why I'm here. I was doing an outreach campaign. And so yeah, I think it is worth considering if that's relevant to you, because it really does work. And a lot of other business owners that I know that are in the kind of the digital space or professional services do very, very well out of LinkedIn if they persist at it.
Okay, all right, thanks for that.
No worries.
So yeah, it's pretty low hit rate, year 1 and 100, 1 and 200, yeah. So just a case.
Yeah, but that's what cold lead generation is like, though. That's just part of the course. So, but it can be very brutal if you forget the ratios. But it does work if you persist.
Okay, all right, thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think the key is persistence, but also, if you look at cold calling, people say, oh, cold calling is dead. But if I look at statistics from, there's a particular company in the States called Rain Group. I don't know if you've come across it, but they put out some really interesting stuff around sales. And they do a lot of statistical analysis where they actually interview both buyers and sellers in large organizations, and not just in the US, but they actually have statistics for Australia, etc. And the interesting thing is cold calling is not dead. Senior executives actually prefer to be called on the phone if you've got something of interest to them, and if there's a value proposition that would trigger their interest, or you could offer them some sort of insight. So between the phone call and email, those two particular channels really still do work. But yeah, it is a numbers game. If you call 200 people, and the vast majority you're probably going to go to voicemail, but then you've just got to say, okay, I'm going to have to call these people 3, 4, 5 times in different modalities. So it's going to be email, it's going to be LinkedIn, it's going to be phone call, it's going to be SMS, and that just takes time. There's no way around it. But then also the other thing is to be really specific as to who you're looking for, because if the market is too broad, it becomes very difficult to actually categorize who. And the person that you're trying to communicate with says, well, why are you even talking to me? This has got nothing to do with me.
And Rashid, how do you go about actually getting the number for your target? Is there a quick and easy way?
The number meaning?
The phone number.
Okay. All right. So if I'm connecting with somebody on LinkedIn, then yes, if there's the phone number, that's great, because then at some point I will pick up the phone and call them. Now, what I tended to do initially was pick up the phone earlier and just call them and say, hey, listen, we're connected on LinkedIn. Can we have a conversation just to get to know you, sort of thing. Sometimes it works, and I've made some really good connections, and we've actually got business out of it. Other times people say, oh, look, I'm really not interested in talking to anybody. I said, that's fine. Okay. But I think a better strategy is to, if these people are actually active on LinkedIn, and you can see, if you've got Sales Navigator, you can see that they're active on LinkedIn. If you've connected with them or you're following them, and then just comment on their posts. Now, not everybody posts all the time, so sometimes it can be a bit of a hit and miss, but you comment, you add value. And the comment is not just say great post, okay? The comment is, hey, I saw this and I think this, or I saw this but I think this. So add a little bit of value, and you're contributing, and then they notice, and then when you call them or you send them a direct message, they're far more likely to respond than if you just did something cold. There are other services. There are services that will get you phone numbers. How accurate they are, I don't know. Lusher is one of them. It's reasonably expensive, but there are other ones like Get Prospect, Snov.io. There was somebody sent me something the other day. I forget what it is, but I can look it up, where it works out phone numbers for people and gives you phone numbers. So you can give it a list of LinkedIn contacts and it'll find phone numbers, or you can give it a list of names and companies, it'll find phone numbers.
But you're suggesting it's better to have some sort of connection with the person before it's ice cold.
Look, you don't have to. I mean, if you're a professional salesperson and this is all you do all day, then you are going to be making phone calls and you're going to be making cold calls. But the point is to know something about these people, know what the problems are that they like to be facing, and have some sort of insight as to what could help them get wherever they want to get to. Okay, so you need to know something about them. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting you spend half an hour looking them up. 10 minutes is usually enough because you're going to go through a number of people.
Thanks.
All right, who is next?
I guess it's me. Yeah, my name is Alexei, and I put some details in the chat board already. So what I do custom app development and software system integration. So I started doing more mobile apps, but came to across to integrate different type of software and building any sort of custom stuff like IoT devices and so on. So the main problem to me, it's exactly the same as Grant said. So basically it's a lead generation, closing deals and so on. And the way I originally started, I started doing from a sort of custom software where it's a lot of complexities, a lot of unclarity, no systems, nothing is structured properly, like going from idea towards to receive something. That's where I started. But because it has become really hard to sell during COVID time because all sales depends on one-to-one meetings and personal meetings. And I started going towards in reverse, like from top to bottom. So basically, as I said to Grant to you, partnering with somebody like a system, like I partnered with, for example, Bittrex24, and they started generating leads for me. So it's much more easy for me to close these deals. It's more easy already prepared. It's more easy to structure. However, when they started generating, I also can do custom stuff, as I said. So, but moving from top to bottom, basically having a lead, closing simple stuff, and then going towards to develop more and more whatever they want. I mean, the customer wants. So, yeah, that at this stage, according to Rashid diagram, I would say I'm probably maybe working more in the business. So I'm not on or not beyond yet. I mean, I was on that stage, but COVID sort of changed a little bit situation, pushed me back a little bit, but that's fine. It's just right now on the stage I'm in. Yeah, that's maybe anything else I should say. Yeah, so that's main problem. Like, let's say closing deals is a main problem. It's because if I go from bottom to top, the system costs too much for some customers, and they need to know me, and it's a long-lasting closing deals, and this is the time sometimes is matter, as I found to my business, and that's why I went to partnering with some other systems. However, still doing the exactly same, like custom software and integrating different parts, different apps.
So Alexei, when it comes to closing deal, what do people say to you? What happens? As in, what's the progression?
Usually it's a price component, because sometimes people assume it's so cheap, I mean, like, let's say $100 in the brackets. So any system is very cheap. It's the first price component. When you say this is, for example, 100,000, they sort of doubt if they want to go ahead. It's a first. Second problem in this space, they have no idea what they want. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's okay. It's not a problem. I know how to deliver, but the problem, because they don't know what they're expecting, they don't have any documentation. They have nothing in the front of them. And when I question, could you please structure, let's say, I use Moscow. I don't know, like if everybody knows Moscow framework. It's a must, like sort of priorities. Must, should, could, and won't do it. And so I ask a simple question: could you do this? I mean, just because it gives me a clarity how serious they are. So, but main problem, they cannot structure even simple priority list. And because they cannot structure, it's not closing deal. It's again, we are talking, not going ahead, or maybe it takes a lot of time for them, and they will do, but after maybe, let's say, 1 month, 2 months. That is the second problem. And the third problem, it's usually sometimes understanding systems, because when I do custom, I face a lot of completely different components. Like let's say, could you integrate to Salesforce? Could you integrate to Stripe or whatever, any other APIs? And this is particularly sometimes either I need to find a partner who I work with who knows that system better than myself, or we need to do some additional research, and it takes a while. This is also part of closing deal, because if we can deliver whatever we promise or not, because sometimes it may become so complicated. And this is the third point.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and tell me if anybody else want to chime in as well, what I'm hearing is that your clients don't actually have clarity as to what they want.
Most in general, yes.
Yeah. So the first thing is to help them get that clarity, and then also think of it as a thin slice, because as you point out, if somebody thinks that it's going to cost them $100 and you're saying $100,000, that's a huge gap. The thing with value is that we will happily pay for something where we get 10 times the value back. But we've got to understand what that value is, and what is that value for us. And your job, and please, people, feel free to chime in. Your job is to help them figure out what that value is to them. So what are they? So okay. So if we look at it this way, there are essentially 6 things that motivate us or demotivate us in some form. Okay, and those 6 things are money, time, status, status/recognition, well-being, capability, and energy. Okay, so money, time, status, well-being, capability, and energy. So the questions that I would be asking, but some of them are more logical and some of them are more emotional. Okay, so if we look at, I'll just do this here. If we look at that particular sales pendulum, which I think some of you would have seen. Now, this model I got from a colleague of mine, Steve Brosman, so I give him full attribution for it. But it's a really good model, because basically it talks about a particular problem that somebody might have. And your job is to figure out that problem. But if you're basically sitting down here in the problem, they're not going to do very much, because the status quo, the problem's there. Yeah, I know I need to do something, but am I really going to do something? Am I not really going to do something? Okay. So your job is to figure out what is the pain this problem is causing, and there's going to be some sort of logical pain, and the logical pain is going to be something around money and time, more than likely, or there's some capability that they don't have that they need to basically bring into the business. And then if it's, let's just say that this problem is costing them money, or this problem is costing them time. Okay, so what is the emotional impact of the money? Okay, it's costing me money, therefore I don't have money to do something else. Therefore, I can't achieve something else that I want to achieve, or maybe I'm just going backwards because I just don't get any efficiency and leverage. Okay, and therefore I'm getting pressure from my spouse or my family or the other employees that I'm looking after, and I just feel that I have to do something. Okay. On the other side of the swing is, okay, so if I solve this particular problem, what is the logical outcome? So the logical outcome might be, I'm going to save money, I'm going to save time. The emotional outcome might well be that I feel a lot better, I feel energized if this thing is solved. Over here, it's costing me energy. Over here, it's giving me energy, because I feel that I'm getting somewhere, I'm moving forward. Okay. The thing that could stop it, of course, is depending on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to, for instance, the leader of the organization, that's great. They're going to go ahead with it. But if you're talking to, if there's an influencer, for instance, in an IT department that says, oh, okay, if Alexei comes in and does this, this is going to make me look bad, or I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to get more work that I don't want to do. That comes down into status and recognition. I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose some form of whatever. But it could also be taking energy I don't want to put that energy into doing something. Maybe I don't have the capability to do it, and therefore I'm going to kibosh the deal. Happens all the time. So what I would say to you is that your job is to say, okay, here is the problem. How do we figure out what this problem really is and narrow it down? Okay. I think the biggest mistake that we all make is that we try and do things that are too big. The thing, if you think of the old, vacuum cleaner salesman, the door-to-door salesman, they'd come along, and when you try to close the door, they shove their foot in the door. And what you want to do is to shove the foot in the door, metaphorically, and start to open it up.
Okay.
So rather than going in and say, hey, listen, we're going to, you've got this big problem. Okay, what's a small problem that we can solve right now? What's something that, because it's a matter of trust as well. Do they trust you to be able to do this? And if you buy something physical, like a car, a washing machine, whatever, it's physical. You've got it. You know that it's likely to work. Okay. If it's services of any kind, the only time you figure out that it's going to work is actually after it's been delivered, which is a barrier if you think about it. Okay. So your customer, your potential client does not know that this is going to work. And they're putting their reputation, their money, their whatever on the line in case and so they're going, okay, what do I need to know? So my thing would be to really narrow it down and say, we're going to solve a really small problem here. What's the biggest problem that if we could solve right now would give you the greatest return on any time, money, and energy, and whatever you put into it. Okay. But really narrow it down. And then say, okay, here's a roadmap. So the roadmap is we're going to draw out this roadmap. Here is the timeline that we're going to go on, but we're only going to start here. And then if you're happy with it, and I'm happy working with you, because this is a two-way street, then we'll take the next step. And if you're still happy, then we'll take the next step and the next step and the next step. Okay. Rather than going in and saying, here's this big, huge, massive job. And people are going, I'm scared. Okay. I don't know if this is going to work.
Okay. And maybe one question to clarify. So, for example, I sometimes I expect, for example, negotiation in a way. So I expect that they will, like in your particular point, when they shut the door in front of you, for example. But if they do shut the door, do you have any suggestions? How can you open it again? Basically they don't speak. It's not just shut the door, but they're not answering, for example, no clarity. Maybe busy. It's not just about deal, but sometimes I see they're busy, simple busy like that. And so,
look, I think, there's no easy answer to that. People buy when they're ready to buy, when the pain is big enough. Okay. So either the pain has to be big enough or the aspiration has to be big enough. But if the aspiration and the goal is really big, but the pain isn't big enough, then they still may not take action, or they'll start, but the minute there's some other pain that comes along somewhere else, they'll stop. And I think, go on, Greg, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. No, you keep going, Rashid. I didn't.
No, go.
It's just following on from what Rashid just said. I read a brilliant book a few weeks ago. It's got a terrible name. It's called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Have you read that one, Rashid?
Yeah, it's been around a long time.
Yeah. So that kind of shows you a process where if they're not responding and all that sort of thing, you've got to look further up the chain. It might be that you haven't spent enough time unraveling the implications of the problem that they potentially have to a degree where they themselves realise that it's more costly for them to not do anything rather than to buy your product or take you up on your service. And so it's very much in that sales conversation where, it's a process of asking questions and guiding them to basically show them for themselves what the implications or cost is if they don't take you up. And then after that, showing you how your service will pay that off, but basically, and give them an advantage in the end. So if they've gone cold and not responsive, it might mean that not enough sort of attention was spent on showing the client, the potential client, what the implications are of their current problems.
Okay, thank you.
Can I maybe I can give an example where I thought the door was shut. I went and saw a software business and showed them some of the IP that I had, and at the time they were quite excited. And then a week later they said, "We're too busy. Come back in 6 months." So that was quite disappointing. And I sat on it for a week, and then I wrote back to them and said, "Look, the investment for you to experiment to see if this is of value, I had expected would only be about 6 hours." And as we were, they were talking about trying to get clients with Toll and, some large corporations with a very small experiment. I said, your time is 6 hours. Most of it's mine. 2 to 3 to plan how we're going to connect my IP to your software, and 3 for you to prepare and submit that. And then the CEO wrote back and said, "Okay, we'll make that investment. Let's meet in a few weeks." So I was quite despondent, and then I did think about where could it have gone wrong, and by scaling down and going to a very small step to try and build that step of trust, the CEO said, "Let's go ahead." Now that was that was 2 months ago, and I've not heard back from them. And I've been cool for a while, but I probably need to press the point with them again.
Okay.
I don't know
if I can come in as well, because I've got some knowledge of the industry. I mean, and I think the point that Alex makes is really good. I mean, one of my colleagues was selling mobile apps. He sort of stopped during COVID, but his approach was that he would do a spec document first. So he was selling apps around 100,000, 150. But what he was doing is he was selling the client a $4,000 specification document first. And there was a few advantages in that. First of all, you're splitting the sale into a lower amount straight away. You're getting the client to actually realize how big the project's going to be, because they actually have to go through with you and actually work out what they're going to do in more detail. And it also means you're getting engagement from the client, because they're actually working with you on the specification part of the project. You're building up a relationship with the client that you can then leverage to actually go into the full project. And the way you can come into that also is you can say to the client, look, you've got some issues here, you're not quite sure. Let's define what you really want closely. Okay. And this document is totally usable by you for anyone. If you don't like the approach that we take, you can always shop the specification around and find someone else. Right? So you're not locking the client in. You're saying, hey, right, here's a general, tool which you can actually use to help you make the project succeed and be worthwhile. And that way you can as a step going in. And he sold a lot of $150,000 type apps using that approach. And that was the way he went. One of the biggest problems you have the same we have with startups is that startups often change their mind halfway through the development. They suddenly get a new idea on the way through, they haven't thought it out, and they suddenly decide to do a mini pivot. And in some cases, if the database is already built, it can blow up the whole database. So so if you can try and get that specification document in place at the start, it will help you a lot, I think, in terms of being able to actually build relationships, get the larger sale, and also move through in a more efficient way when you actually come to build it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe you couch it and say, look, we're going to do a scoping strategy to make sure that we're going to develop a roadmap, and that road, we need to know where you are now and where you want to get to. And then we're going to put in a whole bunch of milestones along the way, but we're going to do this in small steps. And in each step, I would suggest that each step needs to be relatively self-contained, so that they don't feel, they feel that if they need to stop at any point, they can't stop at the end of that step. It's just about, it's about reducing risk for them. How do they feel that they're not taking a big risk on you? Because if I just say, okay, I'm just going to do this small component, okay? So there's a decision, the decision making grid of the urgent and the important. Well, there's another way of looking at it as well. you can say, what is the impact of a particular thing they want to do and how easy is it to do it?
Is it worth just asking them outright, what would be the smallest step we could take to, just ask them how they feel? Because I often, they get excited, and then when I show them what's behind it, they get a sense of oh my goodness, this is a really big thing. And then I have to try and pull them back to, well, let's just take a really small step. But I have a meeting with Amex in a few days, and I'm tempted just to, at the end of it or towards it, say, what would be the smallest step for you to validate this? Is that an approach, Yoshi?
Yeah, I'd say that's absolutely the approach. So what I would do is do a sort of value ladder. Okay. So now, if you look at what I did here, this is a value ladder. All right. So this is something that an organization wants to do. But a value ladder might be also just a series of steps in a ladder like this. Okay. So this is where they are now. This is where they want to get to. But what are the various steps to get there? And you can say, okay, you're here now, you want to get there, or you just say, these are the steps, and you don't even say where are you. You just say, okay, this is the beginning of a journey. If I can write properly, and you ask them where they are, okay, on this particular journey, and you say, okay, what are the one or two things that we need to do to get from there to there, and what are one of the two things that need to be in place to even be here? Does that make sense? Have I explained that well enough? I've sort of.
Yes, it's basically, instead of taking the whole chunk, explaining small steps and to define current positions and what takes them to move from one position to another position.
Yeah. So if I changed this one to a value ladder, all I would do is I would say, okay, so in our original value, we said people were drowning, which we don't really want anybody to be. We'd say they're unstable or unstable. Then there was stability. Then originally we had consolidation. Then expansion. Then asset. And then legacy. Okay. So we would say to somebody, okay, in your business, where do you reckon you are? Given, if are you relatively unstable? There's feast and famine, or are you drowning where you're about to go out the door backwards? Okay. And they'd say, oh, look, we reckon, interestingly enough, even for, most people would say there's somewhere between here and here. Most people say that. I would say, okay, so rather than, this is the overall journey, but what would it take to make sure that you stay stable rather than drop down into instability? And what would you need to do to consolidate the business? And consolidating the business means, working on the business. What do you need to have in place for your leadership team, your lines of responsibility, proper sales processes in place that have actual systems, not ad hoc stuff? What would need to be in place? Which then gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I want to expand, or I don't want to expand. And when we talk about expansion, one of the interesting things is, especially with IT companies, they all want to expand, and they all want to scale. And I'm going, scale. What's the point of scaling? Why do you actually want to expand and scale? Because what's the reason for that? Because scaling, no, wrong one, go back. Scaling takes money. And lots of businesses actually go out of business because they don't have the cash flow to fund the growth. So is it better to just consolidate and make money that you then take out of the business, you slot away, you then, that compounds, rather than feeding money back into the business constantly, thinking that one day you're going to sell it when you can't? Because the whole point is to go from from here, basically they're making an asset, which then allows you to have a legacy. So it comes down to choice. So if Alexi, if you put it this way and you said, okay, what are the various stages that these people want to go through, and where are they in your particular case with this particular client? So with every particular client, you need to say, okay, where are they and where would they want to go, and draw out a value model. That's just a model for them that you would then draw out and say, okay, you're here, where do you want to get to? What do we need to put in place, and what are the small steps?
I would answer in your example on the board, what you just put there. So usually they want to big jump, they unstable or stable, and they want to straight away to have assets. So basically it's missing a lot of steps. It's usually I see, yeah.
And your job is to basically bring them back and say, okay, that's great. We can get there, but what's the timeline for doing that?
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
Because if it's too big a jump, then the hurdle is too big, and the first thing that the first problem that comes along, they're going to stop. There's a really just as a slight diversion, it's an interesting one, but there's something called the tonal scale, and if you play music in any way, you'd know about tones and semitones. Okay, so Greg plays music. So this, believe it or not, came out of the Church of Scientology. All right, I'm not promoting the Church of Scientology in any way, but they had this thing called the tonal scale, and the scale I think had about 20 different levels, and the bottom level was serious depression all the way to sort of utopia. But what the point of the tonal scale is, wherever somebody is, if you come in too far above them or too far above them, they're likely to drop. So you need to be within half a semitone, or well, a semitone, half a tone from where they are. Okay, I'll give you a classic example. Would be a motivational speaker who goes in and he's been or he or she, usually a guy in this case, has been called in by a company because the company said, hey, listen, we're going to be sacking, making half our workforce redundant, and we want you to come in and we want you to rah and cheer them up. Okay. And so the motivational speaker comes in and he bounces in and he goes, oh, it's a fantastic day, isn't it? And I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really glad you're here. What do you think the audience is going to do? What do you reckon they're going to do? They're going to sink. They're going to absolutely sink down into even more depression, and they're going to boo the guy off the stage. But if the guy's smart and he comes in and he says, oh, I've just heard. Bloody hell, it must be really, really tough. I've heard the bad news, and yes, I've been there myself, and I can actually empathize with what you're likely to be going through. So he meets them at their level, and then he brings them up. Okay, and they come with him rather than sinking. And if we look at your analogy there, Alexi, wherever they are, they want this massive thing over here, but it's too big a jump.
I understood you.
Good.
I have to be a priest in the church. I have to be a priest in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, thank you. It's clear.
All right. Michael, you haven't said much. You've been thinking.
Actually, Peter is next.
Okay.
Sorry
Peter,
to interfere.
That's okay. So my business is a B2B SaaS product called GradSift, and it's sold to, we sell to companies, large companies. And what it does is it's specifically for a niche of graduate recruitment. So basically where you get large employers receive 1,000 applications from students, and they use GradSift's AI to basically immediately kind of shortlist, filter a shortlist and decide who they want to bring in for interviews. So it's a major kind of efficiency benefit for employers, and also does some really cool things in terms of improving diversity. So we've been around for about 3 years. and our target clients, again, are larger companies, and we deal with HR people. So the issue is that it's 2 sell-in times a year. So it's not like you can go and knock on the door and somebody buys it today, because there's only 2 real times a year when employers go and recruit graduates or interns. So there's only 2 sell-in seasons. So the challenge is staying top of mind of those prospects. So when they do come to want to start researching what alternative products are out there, or they do want to make buying decisions, that we're kind of there in the space. So that's the kind of, I guess the challenge or the issue. And certainly, we do a newsletter that goes out once a month, goes out to a whole bunch of people. And pre-COVID, there used to be industry events 5 times a year that we'd attend, and that was excellent at being able to build relationships, build trust, and lead to business. But then with COVID, that all went virtual, and while they still had the virtual meetings, there was no relationship building there at all. Now, post-COVID, a lot of those kind of meetings still happen virtually. So that again, it's looking at how to go and maintain those relationships. People change in the corporate world. So we lost like a large client where the person left the company, and I didn't know. And like 3 months later or 4 months later, when I reached out to renew the subscription, they said, "Oh yeah, that person left, and we've decided to go do something different." So I'm kind of interested in any thoughts that people have on this right now, of how you might go about maintaining those kinds of relationships, even when you know that there are people who are going to be leaving that have been your previous contacts.
Just thinking, Pete, is there an opportunity there for you to be the person who hosts the resurgence of in-person?
Yeah, that was my thoughts as well, Shane.
Yeah, look, in fact, that's a very good question, because I came up with that idea myself and spoke to some other suppliers about putting on maybe a couple of times a year a virtual event where we invite the HR people through our networks to come along and talk. So we haven't implemented it. That's certainly an opportunity, and I think it's leveraging the power of the other suppliers to that sector. I think in that very first session, we were talking about networks and other partners, and I think that's certainly one thing that I probably should pursue further. Yeah,
I was actually thinking more to the point that if it used to be a heavy in-person event thing, and people have kind of shied away from that for obvious reasons, and things have shut down, is there an opportunity to kind of have a resurgence of face-to-face and be the in your area, the host of in-person events, because that would make you unique again, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And Shane, there is an industry association which has been doing that, and they will be bringing them back on board again, but probably not with the same numbers of people attending. And because it's national, let me think about that in terms of an option. I hear what you're saying, because it can be smaller kind of events that you're right that I could put on that are in person. Yeah.
I was wondering, just as a follow-up to that, Peter, you could perhaps, if you were sort of more the organizer, facilitator, even of an online event, it might help you build better connections than just as an attendee of an online event. So that might be another avenue as well. There might be some opportunities in disguise for you here, perhaps.
Yeah, and Greg, again, it's really good to hear that. We have just in the last month put on a couple of online events which have been not a demo of our product, but we described as a case study of how, you know, one of our clients used GradSift to, you know, make shortlisting easy, just something simple like that. And that brought in new prospects who hadn't been in touch with before. And we're actually, because we're also just starting to launch into the US virtually, we've got a LinkedIn event kind of like this with that same kind of theme in a couple of weeks' time, where again, it's not a demonstration of the product, it's more about how, you know, how another employer has used, you know, GradSift to, you know, solve this particular problem. So I think, yeah, building on what you've just said, it's continuing to think about ways to add value to you know, people and using technology like this to deliver it.
I mean, Rashid said finding the people who've already got the audience. Is there an opportunity to go through the universities somehow, given they get rid of grads as opposed to companies who are trying to acquire them? You know, maybe as an opposite angle. Yeah.
So just say that again, Shane, in terms of.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud. I haven't quite thought yet. But if the theory is the unis are trying to offload grads at the same time companies are trying to attract them, is there an opportunity through the universities to talk to or somehow get access to the organizations that are friendly to them to get in front of them, perhaps?
There could be, and then certainly we've got good relationships with other vendors who are much bigger than us, and so we do informal referrals. So if certainly they hear a client who's looking for a solution where GradSift might fit, they'll refer that client to us. So that's there, and but again, I think it's what you're saying is look to sort of build on the kind of the network, the infrastructure of other people involved who are talking to those employers, and see if there's ways of leveraging that.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether the unis would be interested in helping you, being you're a commercial enterprise and they're not. But I mean,
they're generally not. Yeah, they again, we've kind of got lots of connections there, and again, they'll be helpful, but they wouldn't provide here's a list, or Peter, you should go reach out to this particular employer. But our other vendors are more likely to go and help out there.
I guess the other question for the vendors would be, how can you help them sell more? Because if we're all in it for what's in it for me, ultimately, altruism only goes so far. How can you be the person who connects them and helps them get more business? The other interesting thing, though, is, and I learned this from one of our clients. He said he used to talk to other business owners about cross referrals. So he's a financial planner, and he would talk to, say, an accounting company, a large company, and he said nothing much ever came of it until he went on somebody's referral course, and this fellow said, "Look, there's no point in just talking to the head, you as the head talking to the other head, because they're all consumed and subsumed with whatever they do. What you need to do is you need to organize a morning tea or a lunch for all of their staff to come over to your place, where they can meet your staff, and then you and then you do it the other way around, because it's actually the staff who deal with people on a day-to-day basis who say, Fred needs help, and then they will contact somebody in your organization, okay? And you keep those relationships going. And I thought that was a really interesting idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because as you say that, I was just thinking of a meeting I had with a sales director of this other vendor, and we had a bit of a chat, and he said, tell me a little bit more about what GradSift does so I can let my team know. But that was just like a 5-minute kind of chat. And to your point, Rashid, to be able to sit down and do a session like this for 20 minutes, talking to the team and explaining or showing them how GradSift works, because when people see it, they say, wow, it's absolutely fantastic. So that's actually something I will do as a result of this, is actually set up some of those meetings.
Mm. And then you've got to, as Barbara just pointed out to me, the 90-day rule. Okay, so the 90-day rule says on day 91, people forget you. If somebody else comes along with something that they could have done, that you could have done, they'll go with the other person.
Okay.
And 90 days it seems to be a really interesting hard cutoff.
Very good.
All right. Who's next? Who else has got a problem that we want to solve?
I'm a bit new to the group, so is
everyone else. It's okay.
All right, fair enough. Well, thanks very much, Rashid, for putting this on, and it's great to meet everyone and see everyone here. So I guess I've got an interesting problem. It's actually very relevant, that graph that you showed at the start of the call, Rashid, with the points in which you transition from each stage of business. So I run a web development company. We specialise in SEO for local businesses, and we started this. I've been in websites since 2013, but we've recently started. I was doing international websites, and now we've pivoted to helping local businesses build websites and renovate websites for them. We started it late last year, and it's been the demand for the service has been very high. So initially I thought when I started the business I would need to do a lot of prospecting, which I did, but that prospecting was surprisingly effective, and now we're inundated with work, and it's just my wife and I currently running the business. So we're kind of at that point just when we're thinking we need to build a team quite quickly to cope with demand. And I've basically had to completely back off the sales part, the side of the business. And so, as you were saying, Rashid, I'm kind of worried I'm going to be chasing my tail once I do deliver all these projects, then sort of having that lag of not spending time in sales for the past month or so, and then sort of that feast or famine kind of situation. So I guess the problem is pretty obvious, that I need to hire more people, but that comes with risk as well. And in my previous businesses that I've run, I've had very mixed results, finding good people. I've tried, outsourcing overseas as well as hiring locally in Australia. Some have been great, but then they've had to wrap up. Some have been very poor, and perhaps my leadership skills need a bit of work. I think I work great as a sole operator and as a partner with my wife, but when it comes to managing people and all that sort of thing, I do find that a completely different skill set that I'm still getting to grips with. Perhaps it's obvious what I should do, but I'd love to hear your thoughts anyway from
Sure.
around the room, what you think.
Okay, let's go around the room.
This is a bit out there, but what if you didn't? And that's a stupid saying, but what if you changed, instead of saying, I want to take on more work and have to outsource it effectively, whether you're bringing people in or not, right? What if you went and do less work for higher value?
Yeah, sure.
Just thought that you don't need to have the problem of I'm not good at managing people or recruiting or offshoring.
Yeah.
And you grow your business by, I don't know, value rather than volume.
Yeah, exactly. Perhaps my sales skills need a bit of work, I guess, to kind of have the confidence to charge what we're worth, because these projects are a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like it does take, a good. If you're going to do a good job on a website, it does take a good few weeks of work to with all the SEO and full development and everything. So it's not like but it's quite a commoditized market as well. I'm finding, because there's lots of people that say they do SEO but they don't. you know what I mean, or do a very basic job and don't really get the result. They just use a template website and that sort of thing. But it's so we're kind of competing against a bit of commoditization in the market. But you've got a really good point there, Shane.
But Greg, you say you've been overwhelmed with work. Like when you are selling, you're fairly successful at finding those leads fairly quickly.
Yes. So, for whatever reason, the sales process is going really well, and we are getting on board a lot of customers at once. And because we're relatively new, it's sort of not like I want to kind of go, oh, sorry, we're too busy at the moment. You know what I mean? Like, so we are managing, but it's kind of just that borderline point at the moment where if we get any more. If we get much more work over the next month or so, then we'd start to have to go, look, you'll have to wait for a while before we can get through those current jobs. You know?
So my observation, it's not my space at all, that in as you said, a commoditized market and some struggle, if you're able, you yourself are doing something, saying something, offering something that's hooking them, and many other organizations can probably do something like you do, and you probably deliver well, but it sounds to me like one of the company's assets is yourself, and that engagement. And if an observation is that a lot of the work being done can be repeated by others, then you're the main asset, front facing. And if you can find a way to repeat the production with others, then you might find that balance.
That's really interesting you say that, Alex, because my favourite part of the business is the selling. You know what I mean? I really like meeting people and talking to people, and I don't know if a lot of people seem to not like the selling bit, but I just really like getting out and about and meeting people, and but I also like doing the websites, but it's kind of like I like doing the selling more. You know what I mean? And as you say, there is a lot of expertise available for making great designs. Like obviously we would keep the SEO and all that sort of thing in-house, because it is hard to find a specialist that can do a good job on that. But you've got a good point there.
And then it just comes down to the business model. How can you have a business big enough to scale for you to spend most of your time selling, while bringing on people and paying them, an appropriate remuneration to provide the skills you are. So you need a bit of, so they can afford you to find them work.
Right. Gotcha.
So this is a case of working more on the business and then eventually beyond the business. And the beyond in your case could be selling, because that's what you really enjoy, and knowing that the back end takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grant, I interrupted you, I think.
Jürgen, I think.
Yes, yeah. I wanted to chime in and say you're obviously enjoying selling, and you have great success in doing so. So if you boil it down, so what is the main reason that clients sign up with you, especially when it's a commodity?
It's probably the relationship, I think. Yeah, just the connection and relationship, and people. Yeah, people buy from people they like, they know, and they trust, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So my recommendation first off would be increase your price, because obviously you are very good at what you're doing. And then the next question is, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Do you want to be a millionaire? So do you want to scale up, and then you need a team? Or are you happy with whatever you're making right now and still having time to enjoy life on the side? So, and that's a very personal question, and only you and your wife can answer that.
Very good advice, thank you.
The way I would look at it is also, as Jürgen pointed out, put your price up and keep putting your price up until you start getting a lot of resistance. Because, okay, so if I was to say, okay, what sort of level of margin do you normally work at?
Well, the margin's the margin is based on our time, I guess, at the moment, because it's just myself and my wife, that our operating costs are quite low, but our time investments are quite high.
Yeah. because there's a really, and I'll fish it out and I'll send it to you. Well, I'll send it to everybody. I'll put it on a list. There's a really good table of how much you can put your price up at the level of margin and how many less customers you need to keep making the same amount of profit. I don't know if you've seen that particular table.
I haven't seen that before, no.
Yeah, Barbara, can you just make a note and I'll just send it out.
And also, just to flip it around, Greg, if you're currently pricing by the time you and your wife are needing to build this, how about pricing by the value that a good website delivers for your client? Because in today's world, without a website in certain industries, you're nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
And there again lies also repeat business, because a website usually matures within 3 months. It's one internet year, or the other way around. So 3 months in the internet is 1 year in real life. So after 12 months, it's already 4 years old. And then you kind of need to redo this. And it's easy then for you to speak to your clients and say, how about we are tweaking this, we're tweaking that, and then have repeat business.
Can I add something, Greg? I think you're a typical example that this is one of your first consolidation phases, because you don't only have one consolidation phase in your business. That's one of the first ones. Whichever slice in the business journey you're in, you are looking at consolidation, whatever that means in your particular circumstance.
I was just going to add, Greg, that if there's repeatability elsewhere, that you can't be duplicated.
I see. Yeah,
are a core thing. Now, business is about producing something and the go-to-market and selling something. And your business has a very strong front end, which is you, which can't be repeated.
Okay.
Maybe the back end can be.
Right, gotcha.
Could I add a point here?
Yeah, hi, Anurag.
Yep. I would like to actually bring up the other side of it. I hear Greg saying that it is a commodity market, commodity style web development. And I'm as such a very strong supporter of working on the business, because most of the small companies only work in the business, and I promote working on the business. But I think, Greg, for you to move away a little bit too much into selling and selling only can be risky. This is the point I wanted to add, because at the end of the day, you are known for your value is your IP, your differentiation, your disruptive value add to your clients. If you only focus on selling and others do it, that is not right. I think your strategy should be your doers can be your channel, but your channel rather than you selling for them. Anyway, this was just a thought. I thought I should, trigger that thought in your mind as well.
I think that's very valid.
So sorry, can I go ahead? I'm trying. Really hard. Anyway, Greg, because in the past time I also started from the same point. I was sort of my one-man band some years ago, and so when I started, I also was a sales guy, project management guy, and implementer guy. So I knew all process from all this stuff. But the main point, what I realized by doing my business, is that how can I template whatever part of the system can be. It like either design, either in your space, maybe icons or pictures, or maybe sort of block or widget, whatever it may be. Template, it means I document what it means for me, like how I see. I sort of creating the procedures or sort of like a structure around one bit of another bit, and then I'm finding somebody who would do the job. So basically, in my cases, I started with people who had no skills. I taught them, I explained them. Then I move ahead in order to find professionals, like, or I would say like a perfect employee. Perfect employee, I say, when they do the job as I say. So no left, no right, the way I say this, just do this way. And that's it. And I mean, in some cases, I work with the smart people, like when they advise how to do in this, but I came across to right now, like basically I have to template, I give him full complete instructions, and that's it. Just do the job and that's it. So in this case, you may template your skill set, whatever you're doing really well in designing, and give them instructions, but you focus on sales. That's my advice.
Yeah, so it's essentially like copying yourself almost.
Yeah, yeah. So there's the EOS system. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the book Traction, which is actually excellent. And they have one of the things they talk about is lines of responsibility and accountability, and the fact that you really need to draw it on paper. And it's basically taking the stuff that Michael Gerber wrote about 30 years ago and consolidating it in an interesting way. So the key is to have a line of responsibility that says, okay, this function is responsible for this, and a person is responsible for that function, and accountability means it's either done or it's not done, and no two people can have the same accountability, because otherwise it becomes a finger pointing exercise. Right? The other side of it is when you're looking for staff, they have this great model of get it, want it, and can do it. GWC, capability. Okay. So do they get the job, as in do they actually understand the job, really understand the job? Do they want the job? And do they have the capability? And the capability could be everything from time to physical, as in mental capability, etc. Okay. And all of those three things have to be there. Otherwise, they're not going to be a good fit. And then on top of that, you look at the values and beliefs that you and your wife have for the organization, and make sure that those people fit within those values and beliefs.
Right.
So that's something that, when we talk with our clients in the consolidation phase, or even the stability to consolidation, that's sort of moving upwards. Those are the sorts of areas that we really look at and say, okay, well, who's responsible for what? And, you want to stop any sort of finger pointing because it wasn't my job.
Yeah, I do need a bit of work in that regard. In previous businesses I've run, I haven't had the clear processes in place like what yourself and Alexi have been kind of talking about, and yeah, so that book sounds really good. I'll have to check that out.
All right, so we've got another 5 minutes to go, so we might just wrap up. So can I just go around the room, just make sure everybody who wanted to put their details into the chat have done so? Just give me a thumbs up if you've done it. I think you have. Yep. Okay. Any final comments? Have you found this forum useful? And if you have, why?
Yeah, I found this amazingly useful. It's first time here, but it's great to connect with so many experienced business professionals, and I really enjoyed your presentations, Rashid. I found everything incredibly valuable today. So I'd love to come to another one. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. All right. Well, we're going to run them probably every couple of months. We want to alternate them with a couple of other types of webinars and other things. So we'll let you know when the next one's on. Yep.
Yeah, Rashid, it's John here. I found it very useful to check in and get back on track. There's a few things that I've been focusing on being in the business a bit too much. And it's been interesting to hear people's thoughts a little bit more about getting back on the business. And a couple of things that I suppose I'd let go by the way that I'm suddenly thinking, oh yeah, I need to circle back around. So it's been useful to sort of hold myself to account. And I also, hearing what Greg had to say, I'm hoping he's got room for one more client. I'll give you a call.
There you go. Anyone else?
Thanks again, Rashid. I've heard a couple of things, and again, it's about repetition. So, and I've picked up a few notes, but I did like the value ladder. That's a new one in this forum. Starting with a small problem, cold calling. Again, that's the one that terrifies me. Yeah, so thanks.
That's a group. Every time I enjoy Rashid joining this group and or other groups which you run, but in this case, I mean, completely. Today, I see a lot of implications through other professionals here. So how I can improve and basically see my problems through other people, which is great. I always enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just as a closing point from me here, like as compared to working in the business and on the business, great thing. For small businesses, there is another aspect. I think the CEO of a small business or a budding entrepreneur is quote unquote a loner. And that is why the value of sessions like this, Rashid, that you are running is it is immensely useful to them, because in a large company, you have your peers to pass on the problem, have a sounding board. Here, a mentorship becomes very essential. So I can see that, some thoughts are being received well, and I think we should continue to do this.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anugrah. Shale, how about you? You haven't said much.
No, yeah, sorry, Rashid. I've just I've been sitting back and listening to everybody tell their stories. But no, this has been very valuable. It's always good to get an idea of what everybody else is going, how they've dealt with different situations and challenges. So it's always a good learning experience. I am trying to focus more on a collaborative type of approach. So I meant to chime up a bit earlier when Greg was speaking, and to suggest, Greg, that maybe, I mean, it's a thought that I've had. A lot of us here are in the same sort of space, and I was thinking, I mean, I face the same sort of challenges as you do sometimes with the whole problem of trying to find people to employ and all the problems that are associated with that. What about a more collaborative approach where we build some kind of a network of programmers and developers, get to know each other, get to trust each other, so that we know that we can rely on each other. So as projects come aboard, we can discuss it, and have and be or to behave in a way that we're a development studio without actually being physically together. Could be an idea as well to consider.
That's a great idea. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely worth looking into that.
Yeah. So I've sent you a connection request on LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
Love to have a chat with you guys.
Yeah. Let's have a chat sometime. Yeah. And anyone else that'd like to look into that possibility.
Yep. Because there are several, I found myself in situations where I'm working on a project. I would love some help, but I'm just terrified of, hiring a freelancer because I don't know them. I'm worried about any backdoors they might leave in a client's system that you just don't know what the intent of people are. So you need to be very careful that you don't leave your clients vulnerable to any malicious activity. So it just scares the daylights out of me. And that's one of the reasons why I don't go out there and try to get them and end up working 80 hours a week as a result.
Yeah, it's something that's at the back of my mind as well, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe we should join forces.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Let's have a chat sometime, and yeah, of course, anyone else that's relevant to as well.
Yeah.
Great. See the power of the group. Michael, you haven't said much.
No, I've just enjoyed listening to everyone, and we all share common problems or similar problems and challenges, and depending on where you sit on that life cycle, you know, working for the business, in the business. Yeah, so it's just interesting to hear other stories and where people, you know, fellow business owners are their journey and experiences and challenges. So it's refreshing. Not refreshing. That's the wrong word, but it's good. You know, who's the one that I think it was a new. You know, you feel sometimes like you're a loner, and yeah, sort of that resonated a bit. Even though I've got a business partner who works more in terms of delivery, in terms of where the business is going, that's my responsibility. So yeah, no, it's always good to just to sit in and have a good listen to these things, and yeah, take on some, you know, some of the suggestions that were put forward.
Okay, great. And Mark, you still there? Or?
Hi, Rashid and all. I've been sitting back listening to everyone today, and it's kind of refreshing to feel that we're all thinking the same thing. Been in business for 20 years. We've had a few cycles up and down, and through COVID, things were really good. And I find this happened about 4 years ago. There was an election coming and everything just went quiet. People were sort of sitting on their hands a little bit. So it was good just to listen to what everyone had to say, and some good ideas come out of today, and it's nice to meet everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. And Grant.
Yeah, it's been really good. I've quite enjoyed it. Interesting to sort of have a conversation around some of Alex's issues. I mean, what comment I didn't see a chance to make was that if you look at the staff side, I mean, the client-facing ones are the important ones. So it's the creative people who put the actual work together, and also the sales side. But the development side is the easiest one to outsource. But as has been said, it's also the most risky. So yeah, and the current market's really hard for labour locally. It's really hard. Yeah, it's been really good though. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, that's good. All right. Yesterday I offered something which I think might be useful for all of you. I can just find the right screen. That one. You may want to take a screenshot of that, but I'll put it in the replay when I send it out. But basically, it's a document that we wrote on how to close a deal. You know, it just goes through a whole sales conversation structure. I think you'll find it useful. Some of the stuff we will do, some of the stuff you may not have thought of. It just puts a framework around it. So that's available for any of you who want it. And as you know, we also do a whole bunch of stuff around sales. So we have sales intensive program and short program, which Alex was on. John is a client of ours currently, and we also have longer programs. So if any of you are interested in talking to us about any of those, feel free to just have a chat. No pressure. So that's it. Thank you very much for being here. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing these things, and I'm really glad that you all found it useful. So till next time, and please look, just do promote it to other people. If I can use your comments to basically promote it, I'd appreciate it as well. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for sharing.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
See you, Greg.
Bye-bye.